Those who were kind of fiddling around with Valmiki's Ramayana and expanding it were aware that at some future date there would be these postmodernist readers who would try to convert this into some sort of an argument about patriarchy and feminism. So they also inserted in there the story of Ahilya. And what is the story of Ahilya? The story of Ahilya is that there is Ahilya who, by mistake, without knowing, ended up sleeping with a man who was not her husband, and is cursed to become a stone, and Ram comes and actually reconverts her back to a woman. So the point being made is that this was not about some idea of purity. So Ram was not worked up about the fact that Sita had spent so much time, had to go away. It is not about her chastity that he was worried. That was the law, and he had to follow it. He was fully aware of this. In fact, going through the Agni Pariksha process itself, Sita at that point in time, he and Ram have a conversation about this. So this whole episode has to be seen then as a conversion of the document into an argument, and a very strict argument for the rule of law, irrespective of whether or not the laws themselves are fair or not. Now, what is interesting is that not everybody in ancient India agreed with this interpretation, severe interpretation of the rule of law. And so that's where the Mahabharata comes in. Now, what is interesting about the Mahabharata is that in the Mahabharata, the so-called villains, and of course, the Mahabharata is about shades of grey. I'm using the term villain in a very loose sense, but nevertheless, the villains, the Kauravas, they actually follow the law. So interestingly, in the Mahabharata, the Kauravas technically always follow the law. It is the Pandavas who keep breaking the law. Even Yudhishthir, the Dharma Raja, also breaks the law at one point in time at least. But the Kauravas follow the law. And yet, they are continuously using the law against natural justice. So in the Ramayana, natural justice is not the issue. The issue is rule of law. Those who are within the rule of law are in Ram Rajya. Those who are outside the rule of law are outside Ram Rajya, or in fact outside civilization, and consequently they are in state of being the laws of the jungle, and consequently when dealing with them you don't have to follow the rule of law. And incidentally, in the Ramayana, the killing of Bali is specifically inserted and termed in this particular way to show that to show the difference between those within the rule of law and those without. So even Ram, when he is dealing with those who are outside the rule of law, does not follow the rule of law. So that is the other interesting thing. But here in the Ramayana, in the Mahabharata, you find there are these people who follow the rule of law but are using it for bad things. So technically, having won Draupadi in the game of dice, the Kauravas owned her and could pretty much do whatever they wanted with her. So dragging her to the darbar and attempting to strip her was legally okay because they owned her. Now, this is where Krishna comes in. And Krishna follows the law. He's never stopping them from trying to strip her. All he does is make it impossible to do so by making her sari being infinitely long. Now, the same thing happens with the Kurukshetra war as well. Arjun says that I, having failed to kill the killer of my son, will now kill myself on a funeral pyre at dusk. And so he's going to go and basically he's walking towards the funeral pyre because he has failed to kill the killer of his son, as he had promised. So he's walking there, and then suddenly Krishna removes the clouds and the sun shines through all of a sudden. And so the sun, it is not yet sunset, and Arjun lifts his bow suddenly and takes revenge. Now look at here how Krishna is different from Ram. Krishna is twisting the law to serve a sense of natural justice. So again, you can see that there are these two strains of thought, natural justice and a strict rule of law. And this debate is going on between the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, and both these texts are being slowly changed in various ways in order to allow this debate to happen. Now, what is interesting is that it is a debate that is not concluded. It is not the case that the Ramayana says we are better than the Mahabharata and vice versa. These are two cases that are made and left to the reader to understand the dynamics of this debate. And in fact, in order to stop this becoming some sort of a sectarian debate, what is interesting, the ancients made sure that this debate is carried out between two avatars of the same God, so that people understand that this is not some sort of a great, ideological divide. This is a much more nuanced debate between two ways of looking at things.